Ladies and gentlemen, I think that we can all agree that the cost of just about everything has increased drastically in the last couple years. Prices just ain't what they used to be. And often when we talk about this increased cost of living, we often look at rent prices, grocery bills, and inflation. And we point to these things because we can clearly see them. I mean, I can tell you that my rent has gone up 16% in the last 2 years. Or I can pull up a chart to show you that inflation has been high in the last few years. These are very obvious things. However, many of the things that are contributing to the cost of living are not as obvious. They're things that we can't necessarily see. They're silent. There are so many things that are increasing the cost of living that nobody is talking about because we can't see them. But El Augustin sees all things. And in this video, I'm going to tell you 10 things that are silently increasing our cost of living. And the first thing is packaging. Now, let's say that you're a coffee connoisseur, and because you love coffee so much, you decide to get a coffee subscription, and a bag costs you $14. Now, most people think that $14 is just for the coffee. But the truth is, there are a lot of hidden costs that go into that price tag of $14. And so let's break down every single expense that leads us to that $14 price tag. Obviously, the first thing you're going to pay for is the coffee beans. Let's say that's $7. Next, the coffee is placed in a fancy bag, so add on another $1. Then, that bag gets placed in a box for shipping. That might be another $1. However, it's not just any box they're using. It's a fancy box that is a perfect fit, has a printed logo and a fancy design. So add on another $1. And to make it nicer, they put in some shredded paper, a postcard, and a few stickers. So add on another $2. And of course, doing all this takes labor. So add on another $2. And finally, you enjoy your bag of coffee for $14. Now, I just made those numbers up. Obviously, there's more costs than just the packaging. But the point I'm trying to make is that packaging has become a huge part of consuming. We want this experience of unboxing. And this unboxing experience increases the price of products, thus silently increasing the cost of living. Now, the second thing is shipping. Now, as we saw in that coffee example, the coffee beans only made up a small percentage of the price, but the packaging heavily inflated the price tag. But there's another thing that's inflating the price tag that I didn't mention. It's something that's not really that easy to see, and it's shipping. We live in a world where instead of going out to buy something, we just get it shipped to our house. And the misleading thing about shipping is that it's free. Companies love to advertise that they have free shipping. But nothing in this world is free. If you are getting a service, you are paying for it somehow. But it's not always an obvious, easy to see thing. It's often hidden somewhere in the price, whether that's a membership fee like Amazon Prime or an increased price tag. Shipping is just a hidden cost. It's not free. You are paying for it somehow, depending on where you get your products from. And just like packaging, it's just a hidden cost included in the price that's silently increasing the cost of living. Now, the third thing is credit card interchange fees. Now let me show you a sign of the times. In 2023, 91% of transactions were with a credit or debit card, and only 9% were with cash. And cards are much more convenient than cash. But what if I told you that that convenience increases prices by 1 to 4%? Would you want to go back to cash? Well, let me explain how this works. Let's say you buy a burrito and you pay $10 in cash. You will get the burrito and the restaurant will get the $10. And that is a damn fair trade. But when you pay in card, it's a little bit more complex, and so let me explain. Now, as you swipe your card for $10, before the restaurant gets that money, the credit card companies will process the transaction and charge 1 to 4%. Then the restaurant will get the remaining amount. And this transaction charge is called an interchange fee. And businesses hate this. That's why many small businesses only accept cash or charge a fee if you pay in a card. They don't want this added expense, but only taking cash can hurt businesses because most people don't carry around cash anymore. So what's the other option? Well, just raise your prices by 1 to 4%. In order to combat this interchange fee, many companies just pass it off to the customer and raise their prices, which silently increases the cost of living. Now, the fourth thing is ambiance. If you went to a sit-down restaurant 10 years ago, you might expect to pay $10 for a meal. But nowadays, in 2023, a meal at a sit-down restaurant will probably cost you about $20. And where is this increase coming from? Well, many people would say rising food prices. And although that is true, there's something else going on because in the last 10 years, we've had this big cultural shift where 10 years ago, restaurants were just basic places to eat food. But more recently, restaurants have really upped their game and they started to really focus on ambiance. And if you go to a restaurant now, you might see a fire pit, ambient lighting, fancy tables, and comfortable lounging. And guess what? That nice ambiance costs money. It costs money to run that gas pit all night as the customers are eating. And just like the hidden cost of packaging, this ambiance is a hidden price in the cost of a meal. Everything is just becoming a lot nicer. I mean, if you go to one of these trendy town centers, it has a beautiful ambiance. But that beauty, that ambiance, costs money. And you know who's paying for that? You are. You're paying for it in the increased cost of a meal. And this ambiance is silently increasing our cost of living. And I do not know if it's worth it. Now, the fifth thing is effortless online shopping. So back in the day, buying something required a decent amount of effort because you had to get in your car, maybe drive to the bank to get some money, go to the mall, walk around the mall, buy stuff, and drive home. You couldn't just do it at any moment. You had to make a plan and free up some time. But now, if you want to buy something, all you have to do is sit on your couch and somebody will bring it to your house. And people's lives became better and easier, and it didn't cause any problems. End of story. Well, actually not. You see, this old way of shopping required a decent amount of effort. And when something requires effort, you tend to do it a little bit less, whereas this new way of shopping requires no effort. And when something requires no effort, you tend to do it a little bit more. And so the problem that we have nowadays is that shopping is so easy that people are spending more money and getting a package on their doorstep almost every single day. People are getting things they probably wouldn't have gotten if they had to physically go out and buy it because shopping has just become this effortless task. And because it's become so effortless, people are spending more money buying more and more things. And this increased spending is silently increasing our cost of living. Now, the sixth thing is car dependency. If you live in the United States, the only place that you can rely on public transportation is in this area of the country in the cities. Everywhere else in the country, you will need a car because the way our cities and towns are designed is extremely car dependent. If you want independence and a good quality of life, you have to own a car in the United States. And I don't like it, but that's just how things work here. And if you own a car, you know that car ownership is a very expensive thing. I mean, AAA estimates that the average person spends $10,000 a year on their car. And this car dependency that we have in the US is drastically increasing our cost of living. I mean, imagine living in a walkable town, not needing a car, and saving an extra $10,000 a year. Your life would probably be a lot easier, but sadly, it will never be that way. And this car dependency that we have is silently increasing our cost of living. Thanks, Henry Ford. And the seventh thing is debt. What if I told you that I knew how you could lower your expenses by 10 to 20%? Would you be interested in hearing what I have to say? Well, it's actually very simple, and let me explain. Let's say you want to buy a TV for $1,000. Now what you need to do is work hard and save until you have $1,000, then buy the TV. So simple, right? Well, sadly, most people buy that $1,000 TV for $1,100. And why would someone do such a crazy thing? Well, instead of working hard, saving, and buying the TV, they do it in a different order. Instead, they use their credit card to borrow the money to buy the TV. Then they work hard to pay off the TV, as well as the interest from the loan, ending up spending about 10 to 20% more. And this is how most people think. They choose to buy things with debt instead of work hard and just save up that money and buy it when they can afford it. And this debt mentality ends up increasing their spending by 10 to 20%, thus silently increasing their cost of living. Now, the eighth thing is busyness. I am 30 years old, and when I look back at my childhood, it is mind-blowing to think how much has changed, because back in the 90s when I was a kid, people could only work within the walls of their office. Calling someone in another state was very expensive, and people didn't have internet at home. And looking back, I am extremely grateful that I grew up in that time, because nowadays we live in this fast-paced world where people can't get away from their work. People are always available, and we're connected 24/7 on the internet. We're much busier and stressed out than we were 20 years ago. And you know what happens when people are more stressed out and busy? They seek convenience, they take the easy route, and they impulse buy. They spend more money because they don't have time to complete the tasks on their own. And ironically, this makes them more busy because they need to make more money. And this fast-paced, busy world that we're living in is silently increasing our cost of living. Now, the ninth thing is normalized abundance. Another thing that has really changed in my lifetime is how much stuff we have nowadays. I mean, it's crazy to think that when I was a kid, nobody had a cell phone. The only delivery truck that went through the neighborhood was the United States Postal Service, and we didn't have internet at home. And it's crazy to think that that was only 15 to 20 years ago, because nowadays we see Amazon trucks every single day. We have food delivery apps and so many new services. We have so much abundance to the point that it's just become extremely normalized, and we can no longer tell the difference between a want and a need. I mean, nowadays we think we need the new cell phone, convenience, and nice stuff. We spend so much more money on these extra things because we think we need them. And this distortion between wants and needs is drastically increasing our cost of living. Now, the final thing that is silently increasing the cost of living is not investing. Now, in the past 3 years, people have been complaining a lot about inflation, and rightly so, because in 2021, inflation was at 7%, in 2022, 6.5%, and in 2023, 3.2%. The price of everything has gone up. I mean, do you remember when eggs were about $5 a dozen? Inflation definitely hurts us financially, but the problem is that people don't take steps to combat inflation. They just park all their money in a savings account, and it loses its value every single year. And your money would decrease in value because of inflation. However, you can easily combat this just by simply investing in a low-cost index fund, because in 2023, inflation was at 3.2%. But in 2023, the stock market has gained over 20%. You would have easily beat inflation drastically just by investing in a low-cost index fund. However, so many people choose not to invest, and that inaction silently increases their cost of living. And those are the 10 things that are silently increasing your cost of living. And with that, muchas gracias, que tengan un buen día. Nos vemos, chicos.